Kia ora and welcome to Gregorian Chat. I'm here today with a very special guest, Grant Norsworthy.
G'day Dom, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm very privileged to meet Grant. It's been a while. We tried to meet up in Nelson when we were there last time.
Didn't work out,
but this time we've made it happen.
We have, although I feel like I know you very well. Because I've watched video footage of you quite a bit, you and the rest of the stations. And I feel like as I watched the video and listened to your amazing voices, I got to know you.
It feels like you're doing the interview now.
How was it for you? No, your interview, go ahead.
This is Grant Norsworthy. If you don't know who he is, you could definitely get on the internet and look him up. I know you mainly as the producer, I guess you could say the mastermind behind the New Zealand Blessing, which is the best blessing, by the way, out of all the blessings, so? Definitely.
Wow, thank you.
I
think so too.
So good. If you haven't seen that already, check it out. It'll be in the link below. But Grant, I might actually leave it to you to properly introduce yourself because you know more about yourself than me.
Oh, okay. Well, as you've heard, my name's Grant Norsworthy, and I live in Nelson, but I've actually technically Upper Moutere, and I'm pretty proud of how I say that, Upper Moutere.
Good.
Because it's not bad for an Aussie who lives in New Zealand to say it like that. But yeah, I lived there with my Kiwi wife Brooke and our 3 kids, Max, Marcus and Casper, 3 boys. And we love life there. We've been living there since late 2018. We moved from the United States.
Wow. Very recently then.
Yeah, it feels really fresh and new. Just 2 years living here, a bit less.
Do you have chickens yet?
Not yet. But my father-in-law, who lives just down the road, like 2 minutes away, and it's rural New Zealand here, we're talking about, and we moved to be closer to grandparents and to the slower pace of life in New Zealand, and it feels like we made it out just in time with what's going on in America right now. But we did have 2 orphan lambs for a while.
Oh,
yeah,
that's very cool. We have a friend that she lives up in Upper Moutere as well. She has lambs. She has plenty of like orphan lambs, but she has a vineyard, so they roam free. Anyway, sorry, we're going on a tangent now. We'll catch up about Nelson later. But sure. Grant is an amazing musician and Christian and speaker. Haven't actually heard you speak, but I would love to tune into some of your talks that'll be online. I know that you scrolled past some. You may know the band Paul Coleman Trio.
I know the band Paul Coleman Trio.
Yeah, you do? Oh,
I was in that band.
Really?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me.
Playing bass guitar in PC3, PC3 for short.
So good.
And we had a lot of fun times with that. We formed in late 1998.
Goodness.
Broke up in 2004, got together again in 2011. But yeah, you'd have to be pretty old to remember that band. But yes, I was in that one.
I actually, when my sister mentioned, I said, Paul Coleman Trio. And then she goes, that song, Fill My Cup. I was like, oh my gosh, I know that song.
Yeah, that was a big hit for us.
Yeah.
We came from Australia to New Zealand, played at a festival that was called Parachute.
Yeah.
A couple of times. Yeah, we loved coming to New Zealand.
Parachute became pretty big. It's now called Festival One, well, the thing that replaced it. You also performed in the band Sonic Flood. You're bass guitarist, is that right?
Bass guitar from, I want to say, about 2004 to 2007, based in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's an American band that was hugely successful before I joined. But I really enjoyed my time playing bass in Sonic Flood.
Amazing.
Still did a lot of touring and got to go to Malaysia and Thailand and Singapore and Western Europe and Turkey and Ireland. Got to travel the world, Canada as well. Yeah, enjoyed that band.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, this is pretty much the vein that I want to focus on. I thought we'd for this podcast focus on going pro for God, if we call that our title, going pro for God. Right. But yeah, very, very, very interested. I mean, I know you as a band, quite successful. In the Christian music scene, you guys were nominated for a Grammy and you won a Dove. And I have a bunch of questions about that experience and what that was like.
Sure.
Firstly, I guess I would say and then also maybe after that we can get on to talk about what you're doing now, and your music mentoring and all the knowledge that you have accumulated over this time. No pressure. Yeah. Especially as someone who's in a band myself with my wife and my sister. Not that I'm saying we want to move to Nashville, so let us know how we can do that. No. But what was the point for you? Because you're from Australia, of course. How old were you actually when you joined Paul Coleman Trio, or when that began?
98. Pretty old. I was late 20s. The math escapes me right now, but it's probably fair to say that when I got to the end of high school in Melbourne, Australia, I'd picked up a bass guitar really quite recently and was just playing, and I just loved music. I'd played in brass bands and sung in choirs and learned classical piano, but I found that I loved playing bass guitar in rock bands, and I really wanted to go professional. And I was a follower of Jesus. I was part of a Christian church, and I was serious about my faith. And there was a number of years there where I was really, as I think many of us do, where we're like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? What do you want me to do with my life? Having those sort of prayer times. And I got a sense of a particular answer, sort of in my conscience, like an answer to that just seemed too good to be true. So I ignored it. I thought it must be me talking to myself. Can you relate to this sort of...
Definitely.
Conversation with God can be a sort of a weird out concept for some people, but it's just a sense in my heart and my spirit that I'm being led in one direction. But with the answer that I felt like I was getting to this question of, God, what do you want me to do with my life? It just seemed too good to be true. Because I wanted to rock. I wanted to play bass guitar and go pro. And I wanted to make music where I had some creative input and was feeling like there was some of my artistry flowing into that. But hopefully it was pointing people towards the truth, as best as I understood truth. I wanted it to be pointing towards God. And I thought that God would ask me to, go to India and work in Calcutta or something, but this answer I slowly came around to was like God was saying to me, what do you want to do? Like he was saying to me another question. And I would say, well, I finally got to this point of saying, I want to play music professionally. And then I got this sense, do that, but love me and love people. Love me and love people as you go and do whatever you want to do. Like if within the concepts of loving God first and loving people second, do whatever you want to do. And that was too good to be true for me.
Yeah. Wow.
But I just went for it.
I love that. God just kind of like putting out here are your parameters, but apart from that,
and maybe I was wrong. I don't know, but that seemed to have served me pretty well until now.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, and then, at what was the point where you thought, okay, well now I need to make a decision between holding on to the security of, were you working a job and playing in the band, or did you quit your job?
I was a primary school teacher,
right?
And I actually started playing bass really late. So it was after high school I picked up the bass. But here's the thing with bass guitar. If you've got some musicality, you can be good enough to be useful straight away. I said to my school of musical friends, my peers of musicality, I said, I play bass and I was in 4 bands straight away,
Right.
Because not many people say, I'll be the bass player. Yeah. And I really didn't know what I was doing, but I had some musicality. I understood keys and I understood rhythm and I understood, how a band should sound.
Right.
So my bass playing was actually really quite simple. And I'd like to think that most of my bass playing, even through my career, was somewhat simple because I actually genuinely enjoy the sound of a song that works and seeing how that whole song connects with people rather than my own bass playing.
Interesting, yeah.
And bass playing can be simple enough so you can really I'm sparing brain space and ear space to listen to the whole thing.
Right.
I think that's what makes me a producer, rather than being right into what I'm doing here. I'm like what's going on around here.
Interesting.
And how it connects with people. So, I felt like I needed a backup plan. And my parents were saying, you can't be a musician, you've got to have a backup plan. That's like going in the lottery and expecting to win. It's a tough game.
Put your hand up if you can relate to that. Yeah,
it's a tough game, and especially I would say in a country like Australia or New Zealand, to go pro as a musician, we realised that if we might be able to feed ourselves and a cat and maybe pay our rent for a little while as a musician in our home countries, but if you're going to make a career of it, you'll have to leave home. You've got to go to the UK or you've got to go to America.
Got to leave.
That was my perspective. So I had the backup plan of being a primary school teacher. I actually taught full time for a couple of years.
In the US?
No, in Melbourne.
Just in Melbourne.
And I was playing in bar bands and cover bands and wedding reception bands and original bands and everything, and just really broadening my experience. And it was tough to be there on Friday morning at 8 a.m. with a classroom full of 9-year-olds when you got to bed at 3 a.m. because you were playing at a club the night before, you know. And by the way, you know, that for someone who's a follower of Jesus, I wouldn't suggest that club bar scene is necessarily for everyone. I never fell for the drinking too much, sleeping around sort of trap that a lot of that can be connected with. I certainly wasn't a perfect person. No one is. Well, unless you are. You a perfect person?
Funny story. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. So, but it certainly like packed into me a lot of musical experience. Pretty quickly because I needed to catch up with my peers who'd maybe been playing and singing and writing songs since they were 10. You know. Doing
your 10,000 hours, as they say.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'd actually reached a point in Melbourne where I'd almost given up. It was just too hard. It was just too difficult. And then Paul Coleman and Phil Gordian, two buddies of mine who'd done a duo tour of the US together.
Wow.
They said, totally independently, they said, you know what, if we added a bass to this, because Paul's playing guitar, Phil's playing drums, and a big part of the Paul Coleman trio thing was personality and connection.
Yeah, you know? I picked that up from watching even just 2 or 3 of your songs.
Great, yeah. And so we would almost always do acoustic trio, which would be... anyway, they came back from America and said, well, let's add Grant on bass. And we did a lot of gigs where Phil would be on snare, drum and vocal, Paul would be on acoustic guitar and vocal, I'd be bass and vocal. And it was a lot of like larking around and having a lot of fun. And we could also go back to electric instruments and, you know, peel skin from faces if we wanted to. But it was more about interaction and connection. So, and then it just sort of took off. Like we put out an independent record and we couldn't print them fast enough and they would sell. And then we got invited to go to Parachute. And then we put out another independent record and that one sold really well. And then it was like, on the strength of this, we might be able to go to Nashville. All 3 of us had experience in the bar and club scene separately and just playing, and also playing in churches. Yeah, like
big time.
I'd be playing at a 6 p.m. Sunday night church service with my black nail polish on my hand, ready to go to a club that night and play in a band that was doing Tool and Rage Against the Machine covers. You know, it was kind of a weird thing for some people, but I was just, and I don't know why I did all that.
Not Tool and Rage, but I've been in the worship music at one event and then covers band on the other. It's interesting,
and it can be this weird jolt. But it actually is giving us this wonderful broad experience of music. That's my opinion.
So then you decided to go to Nashville as a band, right? And saying because of that momentum. And then you said, did you get an offer to? Were you still independent when you moved over there?
Yeah, well, yes, technically we were, but it's fascinating how it worked because with the Paul Coleman Trio being the biggest independent CCM artists, Christian contemporary music artists. Any touring band that came to Australia in that Christian world, they needed an Australian opening act. And we would often get to open for whoever it was. And we got to open for Third Day.
Amazing.
And Paul really was very intentional about building relationships with those guys and saying to them, look, we've got these 2 records out. Actually, we had 4 out by then in Australia, all independent records. And they're doing really well, and we're on the radio here, and in this little test tube of Australia, we think we've got something that a Christian audience in America might really enjoy. And Mac Powell, especially the lead singer of Third Day, I think agreed with him. And so he started helping make introductions. But 2001, we actually independently, through that connection with Third Day and Mac Powell, and this is mainly Paul, like he's the velvet steamroller in our band, you know. Monroe Jones, the Third Day producer, we booked him to come to Australia to work in Sing Sing Studio in Melbourne to record our next album.
Wow.
And then 9/11 happened. The towers in New York. And Monroe Jones contacted us and said, I am not travelling to Australia at this, because that was September. And we had booked him, I think, in October or November. Wow. And so we just said, all right, we'll come to Nashville then. And that worked out perfectly because now we booked a Nashville studio, and all the record labels who have their offices in Nashville, they're like, who's this band from Australia with Monroe Jones? And then we were booked to open for Third Day on their American tour in America. And they're like, who are these guys? And so record labels started dropping into the studio and listening to the tracking. And we were like, we even spoke about it. Let's pretend like we don't need a record label. Oh, hi, you're from where? Okay, yeah, we're just working on some tracks, Welcome, come and have a listen if you like, Because so we found that there was this Australian bravado maybe. We're going to do this with you or without you. You want to jump on? We desperately needed a label. But
right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really Paul running all that. I was like an adjunct. But the band's called the Paul Coleman Trio. But it was a band,
right.
Especially in my mind. It was 3 guys, 3 musketeers, all for one, one for all, and Paul was the main guy. He wrote almost all the songs. He's certainly the most... Man, he's an incredible guy. He's one of my best friends. Like by the end of the Paul Coleman Trio 2004, we hated each other's guts, but God's good, and there's been reconciliation, and he is an amazing guy, and I love him dearly.
I mean, it is a challenge. Like even in the Stations, the band that I'm part of, like it's my wife and my sister, and we still find things to get upset about. Whether it's in the studio, or creative decisions, or the fact that we need to stop for lunch now because we're or we want to finish this vocal track before we stop for lunch.
It's very tough, and sometimes and you mentioned some of the things about the Grammy nomination and the Dove Award and things like that. We were broke all the way through that. It looks good on a press release, but we were broke. My brand new wife, Brooke, we got married in December 2001, relocated to Nashville in February 2002. We had no home for 2 years.
Wow.
For a big chunk of that time, we were on $50 each a week. You can't live in America on $50, not even greenbacks.
Yeah.
But the press release looks good. This guy's got a Grammy nomination. Dove Award, you got a number 1 hit? Yeah, we did. Were we making any money? Nope.
Man, that's sometimes the harsh reality, and people don't see that. Right.
That's right, and that you think about it, that's a lot of pressure. So all 3 of us had wives. One wife was pregnant. One couple had a baby already. We are broke. We're trying to make a business together. We're trying to intentionally be in a discipling sort of relationship with one another. We're trying to be creative with one another. It is tough, and sometimes musicians speak to me about, hey, I want to go pro. How do you go pro? What would your advice be? And my advice usually is, if there's anything else you can do and love God and love people as you do it and feel fulfilled doing that, please do that instead, because music is tough. And I've seen a lot of broken marriages. I've seen a lot of kids who don't know whether that be the husband or the wife, they don't know their dad or their mum. It is a tough game. If you want to make money, don't do this. If you want to build really tight, close family, don't do this. Right, if you want to have faith intact, I would also say don't do this. Somehow I've come out the other end. Right. I've got scars, I've fallen over, but here I am. But honestly, my advice would be, if there's something else that rings your bells, like you find that thing that you love doing, the people who do it in music are the people who really can't do anything else. That's my advice anyway. I couldn't think of anything else to do. I couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah, because I think often the way they're saying, I don't know if you ever got this as a teacher, but there's kind of a saying that people will say, if you can't do, teach. And so teachers are kind of seen as the ones who have failed because they had to end up doing. But so what you're saying is actually, if you can't do the normal thing, do music. Not that we want to put down artists in any way, but you're saying is it more that those people are so solely focused on music, and that's the only thing that they're gonna do?
It's not so much you need to be solely focused on music. I don't know how you feel about this, Dom, but there's lots of things you have to do in life. And some things that you do just fulfill you. It's almost like, this is what I was created to do by God. Now, I don't think I'm the most talented musician around at all, And even when I was 19, 20, 21, 22, wanting to go pro, there were people in that pool of musicians in Melbourne, Australia, who were way better than me. Way better. I was the only one who persisted.
Right.
Me, Paul, and Phil, or maybe.
Right.
Because one of my favourite guitarists, a guy named Rick in Melbourne, it's he was also an incredible medical doctor.
Seriously?
Yeah. Wow. And he loved being a doctor as well as playing blues electric guitar. And now he plays blues electric guitar once or twice a month with some buddies.
Cool.
But he's doing medicine.
Yeah.
And, the way I was taught was, if you find something that you love doing, and you find something that you, and if that thing you are also good at, and if there is a need for what you do, then try and find a way of making money doing it.
Great, yeah, there you go.
And that's what I've done, and that's why now I'm not trying to be a career musician. You know, I've got 3 boys. That game is a single person's game, I think, or a single person with no kids. Let me say,
right.
And I know who's in the room. I know who's in the room, right? So I don't think this. All right, here we go. Ground floor music career. I really think that's a single person's game, or a single person maybe, or maybe a married person with no kids, because that until you're successful. There's lots of different ways of measuring that. But until you can make a living from that, it's a tough game.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I am interested because we very much talked about the music side of things, the business side of things, the challenges. What I'm interested in is what things, when you think about music as a ministry, when you think about Christian music as a ministry, I'm guessing you can't really survive as a Christian musician unless there's some kind of ministry surrounding your music. You know, some kind of clear evidence of your spiritual life. I don't know if this is true, maybe you can prove me wrong, but how important is the ministry aspect of being in a worship band? Like, did you find there was any kind of particular growth that would happen? For instance, you play a show and then all of a sudden people are asking you to pray for them, or, you know, like, I guess if I had to try and make this into a question, how important is your personal spiritual life, you know, and the upholding of that during that time of being a professional musician?
I mean, a really great question and a great thing to talk about, but I think you and I might use a few words differently to each other.
Okay.
And that's not that I'm right and you're wrong. It's just different. And I'm a bit weird when it comes to word usage, by the way. Okay. So, for example, I don't think the word Christian is a very good adjective.
Right.
And I don't think ministry is a good word to think of as being the thing that I do that is noticed by other people as being directly to do with my faith in God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think, I don't know why. I don't even know how. And I can't put it into words. But I have come to this point in my life where I believe there is a God who loves me and has a purpose for me. And in a sense fills me with who he is, so that I would be a portal through who he is. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a bucket to contain blessing. I'm a pipe through which blessing flows out to other people. That's my role here on earth. In fact, I think it's every human's role here on earth. And to know that God loves us and cares for us, and for us of the Christian faith, maybe I use the word Christian as an adjective then, sorry. Jesus came to earth as God and died for us and rose from the dead so that we would realize that we are here to be filled with who God is, his Holy Spirit, and be a portal through that. So when the Paul Coleman Trio and other bands I've been in, including Sonic Flood, I think about it this way. We're not a Christian band. These are not Christian songs. We are humans who, for some reason, God seems to have connected very deeply with us. And we have to own this. Most of the people who seem to resonate with our music would consider themselves to be Christians. Right. So music has always been about connection. Yeah, right? Yeah. So when you're playing in a metal band, how do you know you've connected? The crowd's headbanging and got rock fists. If you're a wedding reception band, how do you know you've connected? Because people are talking over you. You know, and then they dance at the end of the evening, right? Like there's different. Like if you've got a dance floor here and you're a dance band, then you know you've done a good job because the dance floor was packed. Now, you just got to know your audience and use music to connect. So we would just look at our people and go, all right, we're just going to try and share our stories about what God's doing in our lives and stuff like that. And I believe that the Bible tells us that we are all ministers of reconciliation. You know, 2 Corinthians 5:18? I don't know. Anyway, BibleGateway.com. Dom's going to put it on the bottom of the screen. There's a passage in the Bible that tells us that we are all ministers of reconciliation. And that shouldn't switch on and off when I've got an audience and a microphone.
This is essentially what my question is getting to.
Yeah. So I'm not really thinking is there ministry happening now? Now, some people use the word ministry to mean praying for people. I've had the opportunity to pray for people, sure. Some great conversations.
Yeah.
But I don't think of that as being ministry switching on and then switches off when I've stopped praying for people.
No.
You know? So I don't know if I've answered your question.
That's right.
But
I was thinking
it's supposed to be this very natural, organic... Because I've actually found this to be the most fun way to live.
Right.
You know, like in any given situation... How is God asking me to allow him to flow through this moment? And I found that this ministry of reconciliation, this 24/7, 365 and 366 and a leap year ministry, can involve me building Lego with my voice. You know? Or it can be me with a microphone in front of people going whatever I'm saying, or picking up a guitar and singing a song. You know, don't think of it as being ministry switching on and off. Just think of it as... God's created me to be a conduit for who he is, a pipe through who he flows through me, and that can be happening every moment of every day.
Yeah, you've answered the question perfectly. You know, whether or not because this is I've always thought you can't give what you don't have. You know, and to use a famous Paul Coleman Trio lyric, you know, if you can fill your cup to the top, you know, it's running over. Then you have something to give. So I guess that's what I was interested in. I think people hopefully watching this, a lot of them will be young people who might be an artist or who are involved in some kind of, I'll use the word ministry, but you know, they've intentionally put themselves in a place to serve or to let their love for God be, you know, the thing which makes them a conduit of grace, you know. And so I was very much interested in you know, how important is that, and I think you've done a great job of pointing out it's not about seeing it as this is the thing that I put my spirituality into, rather as like I let God just work through me, you know, and people can be a part of that. That Aussie bravado. Well, are you coming or you're not coming?
And so it doesn't become a thing of, well, how important is this? It becomes this much more natural. This actually transcends everything. Right. It's not. I've got to make it even more important. It's just like it ends up influencing everything in a positive way.
That's very good. But what do you think the I would say Christian here, the Christian genre I was using?
Yeah, no, I'm with it. Yeah. That's what they call it.
Like, do you pay much attention to the development of the genre, having been in that, I guess, that pull yourself?
Honestly, not really. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Paul Coleman Trio, which was late 90s into the 2000s, there was a thing called the Christian contemporary music industry, and I was quite aware of what was going on then. But within that, there used to be this little tiny subset that was called the worship component of the CCM, and it grew and grew and grew until in 2020, it's almost totally absorbed. And to me, that use of the word worship is a misuse. But I was in bands in those early 2000s when record labels and management was saying things like, worship is what's hot right now. Your next album should be a worship album. And I found myself thinking, what do they mean by that?
Do they mean gospel?
No, they mean songs suitable for congregational singing.
Interesting. So Coldplay. Arena songs that you can go, oh.
No, and that's where the difference between Sonic Flood and the Paul Coleman Trio, where the Paul Coleman Trio, I would say, was we were connecting with an audience by saying, listen to us, here's the hit single, sing that chorus, or we're going to get you to do goofy hand motions, you know, all that. That's how we would connect and how we would respond to our audience and see if we did a good job. And then Sonic Flood was one of the forefathers of the modern worship revival, excuse the rabbit ears. But what that meant was now all the gods are you, God, prayer songs, and we'd put words on the screens, and we were hoping that everyone would sing every word. That was the distinction. And I don't think this genre that we might call worship music, I've chosen not to call it that. I call it songs suitable for a church to sing congregationally. And I think that music is the right music for if you've got a church congregation or people who are believers, people who are followers of Jesus, and you want to invite them to sing a prayer to God. I just don't find that sort of music great listening. I think of music as being a verb, like it's an activity rather than being a noun, a thing. Right. So So for me, if I'm wanting to listen to music, I won't listen to Hillsong or Elevation or Phil Wickham or Chris Tomlin. But if I want to get in front of a church congregation and invite them to sing a prayer to God, I'll probably choose one of those artist songs and cover it.
Yeah.
You know, and put it in their key, not mine.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'll sing way lower than I want to, so that every man, woman, and child in the room can find the melody and sing it. And that is the right verb music for that setting. But me putting on headphones to like, I want to be inspired by this, I want to be moved personally, my own little experience of music, it's not the sort of music I listen to.
So good. It's such a great thought. There's something we've been trying to focus on, I think, as a very fledgling band is, our producer is very much aware. He's been in Christian worship circles and produced music for churches, and this happens all the time now. You get a church worship album, and so he's great at saying, well, are you wanting to be a worship band, or what does that mean? Do you want people to be singing your songs in churches, or you want this to be the best song it can be?
Because I feel like there's a massive confusion there. I really believe it, because I think there are some really talented people who are sincere believers who the only path ahead they see for a career to go professional is to identify themselves as being a worship artist, a worship leader. And they end up blurring the lines between performance and leading congregational singing. Yeah. And I'm with More Than Music Mentor that I've been doing now for the last 13 years. I'm trying to create clarity there. Yeah. It's been absolutely freeing for me to think, okay, I can perform music that hopefully brings glory to God, but what I'm actually doing is asking people to listen to me, or I can invite a congregation to sing. And I hope both can point to the glory of God. What really troubles me is especially in our sort of grassroots Sunday gatherings, this is the signal that I get over and over again. It's like, will you sing with us but don't? Sing with us but don't. We're going to put the words on the screen, everyone stand together, let's sing, and then the leader starts, and it's in the high tenor's key, and he's embellishing the vocal and singing it his way. Yeah. Now, what their Elevation's context is Elevation's context, and that works for them because they're actually making a hit single first, in the hope that a congregation will sing it later. Yeah. If they chose a different key, it maybe wouldn't have been a great listening experience.
Well, I think
you know what I mean.
He's got such a great voice that he actually sings in a good key for most people, for women, but he sings an octave higher. What's his name? I don't actually know what his name is.
Carrie Job and Corey.
Not Cody Carnes.
Cody Carnes. That's him. Yeah, Cody Carnes.
I guess they sing with Elevation. Yeah. Sorry.
And there's another, Chris Brown's one of the other. Right, and we're thinking about now we're launching to like the song "The Blessing," but yeah, when we listen to, as an example, that song "The Blessing" from out of Elevation, he's singing in a register that does not invite Joe the plumber to sing with him. Right. But when I present that song, I'll choose a key though so that Joe the plumber feels invited to sing. Right. So I'll have to sing a lot lower than I want to. Not that I can sing as high as Cody Carnes does. Not comfortably.
That's great. I mean, I'm glad we've segued onto the New Zealand business. I want to talk about that, and then just briefly, not briefly, but at the end talk about More Than Music Mentor and what you're doing. Yeah. So with the New Zealand Blessing, if you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it. It was really touching. Yeah. Pretty sure I shed a few tears there as well. But no doubt, like a tremendous amount of work put in by you.
And a team of other people.
A team of other people,
a lot of people.
And and it took quite a while to get it there in the end, but I think the result was just amazing, and we watch it almost regularly. It's so good. What was that like? What was that experience like? And some of the points that you've taken away from. You must have been in touch with so many people of faith across New Zealand.
It was a great experience. It was really tough. It was a tough thing to take on. I saw the UK Blessing, another YouTube video, in I think May. We were in lockdown, and I saw the UK Blessing, and it really deeply moved me. And I thought, this is a beautiful thing. And the reasons why it resonated with me so deeply, I've only become more obvious later. But what I've realised is I see a group of people across denominational boundaries, across age boundaries, across ethnicity boundaries, and all sorts of boundaries, deciding to be this pipe for God's blessing, during a really tough year, during COVID-19 lockdown, we're going to declare God's words of the Lord bless you and keep you. You know, God is for you, not against you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was wonderful. Then I realised that many of these videos have been made, and so I wanted New Zealand to join that choir. I wanted to be in that choir. And so I started that job, and I think I learned that most singers don't read 3 pages of instructions about how to shoot a video and record their audio. But
sections.
No, you guys did great.
Oh, good.
You guys did. But basically, the whole project was really just to frame the unbelievable and undeniable talents of the Sations. It was. I was hoping to get maybe 30, 40 video submissions, but we got 200.
Amazing.
The job that I thought was going to take maybe 3 weeks took 3 months. I nearly renamed the song "The Burden" in the middle there. It was very, very tough to find. Well, I found myself grieving choir culture, to be honest with you, where everyone in a choir knows you listen to the singers around you, so you interpret the melody the same way. You have about the same amount of vibrato. You finish the notes together. You've got a conductor telling you if you're not doing it right. But I ended up with vocal submissions from a whole bunch of soloists, and trying to bring that together to build a choir. That was really, really tough. But we got there, and we ended up going with the mess of it. But it was just a wonderful thing. And the response I see to the Blessing is people, I think, also through the Blessing Aotearoa, getting the same message that I got through the UK Blessing, where we see the Christian church across the world wanting to declare God's blessing and be that pipe through which God's blessing will flow during the toughest year for the world that I can remember.
Well, I shouldn't say that, but in the modern age. Amazing though, what a result. I'm sure it's really rewarding. And I must say it was really well done, like even the streaming of the release of the video itself and your interviews at Shabby Road. Is it Shabby Road?
Shabby Road, my little shack.
So great.
No, but I can't take credit for all that, but I will take credit for herding all the different elements together and finding the right people to do the video edit and the mixing and the mastering. And it was actually the team at Rima FM and Shine TV who helped us know how to do that Facebook launch and all that stuff. So a lot of help.
It was very good.
But yeah.
And let's talk about more the Music Mentor now. And so that's kind of your main thing, but I mean, you're also involved with World Vision. You partner with them.
That's right. Yes.
I actually used to do. I had a summer job, and I went around neighbourhoods, knocking on people's doors, asking if they would like to sponsor a child.
Wow.
Toughest job I've ever done.
I'll bet.
Rewarding, and that was the only reason I took the job. Actually, was because it was World Vision. But man, I really, I'm not a confrontational person, so I don't do well with hearing no. Yeah. 3,000 times a day and yes once. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I just want to say I admire
that's okay.
the work that they do. And with more the Music Mentor, can you kind of just explain perhaps how that started for you? At what point do you say, hey, actually this, or is this another thing that I'm confusing here where you said, actually, I need to do this as a job? Or were people coming to you and asking for advice? How did you turn it into
when I was in Sonic Flood, I started speaking from stage to invite crowds to sponsor a child.
Okay.
And then Max, our oldest son, arrived. So that's 2007. And then I finished my time with Sonic Flood, and I thought, at my age, now with babies starting to arrive, I don't think I should be trying to find another bass gig. Bass is a great instrument. I love bass. It's still my main instrument. But you are a parasitic musician. You have to depend on others. You can't really go out on your own playing bass.
Sorry, Sorry, Flea.
So that's why I decided, I really enjoyed that 5 minutes of talking the Sonic Flood show. And I actually found myself getting more passionate about that little teaching moment that I had than all the bass playing. Because in Sonic Flood, while I enjoyed the band, it wasn't my artistry. It wasn't my creativity. I was there as a technician, play that bass part, sing this backing vocal. That was the extent of the artistry for me. And I always felt like I had more to offer than that. So it was late 2007, early 2008 where I decided, all right, I'm just going to present myself to the Christian church as a speaker/teacher. And I would say, I'm not a singer who talks too much. I'm a speaker who can sing songs. And that was my little sort of tagline. Yeah. And I still use it sometimes today.
I should have introduced you that way.
You can, if you want, just edit.
Grant Norsworthy, he's not a singer, he's a speaker who can sing songs. Did I get it right?
It's better when I say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's not a singer who talks too much.
Oh,
he's a
sorry,
speaker
I
who
missed
sings
that.
songs.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Totally fine. You want to have another go?
I'm good.
And so I would often get booked to go and speak at a college chapel or speak it for a church service or some sort of event, and I'd often be asked to play with some local amateur musicians. And so I would have to try and form them into a sound that I felt like I could work with.
Yeah.
And they were often not great. So I found myself getting better at directing them, but I realised I can't jump straight to the what and the how with music stuff without them understanding the why. So I started developing a talk about why I would want the drummer to play less, why I would want the bass player and the drummer to listen to each other, why I would want the song in that key rather than that key if we're leading a congregation to sing. And then the why and the what and the how, like the what and the how flowing out of the big why, just developed into a big curriculum.
Amazing.
And I felt like, actually, I think I'm doing something here with amateur level volunteer church musicians that not many people are doing.
Yeah.
And so I just kept on developing that. So More Than Music Mentor, morethanmusicmentor.com, is me offering what I call training for the heart and the art of worshipping musicians. Because it does start with the heart stuff. You know, it starts with this, and are you trying to impress an audience, or are you trying to invite them to sing worshipfully to God? And I like both. There's a place for both. I'm a fan of both, but let's just don't do that. You know, let's make those distinctions.
So good.
And yeah, so I love doing that, and I also find it important as a communicator and as a teacher that you need to give people a chance to respond with something. So when I was a grade 4 teacher, I hadn't taught long division. If I'd shown the kids how to do long division, they had to solve some long division sums.
Yeah.
And I think in the church we might hear a message or a reading or something could be presented to us that should change our lives, but it doesn't, because nothing is required of us. So for me, it's important to say, would you consider, as an example, that we should not be a bucket to contain God's blessing, we should be a pipe through which God's blessing flows. If that message is resonating with you, then consider praying for a World Vision child. And just see if this flow starts happening for you. I've got to give people something to do. And so that's why there's a wonderful connection for me between being a teacher of these, hopefully, God-inspired thoughts and giving people a response. And, you know, Mother Teresa, we can call Saint Teresa now, I quote often. She says that the poor are God in his most distressing disguise. And as I have engaged with the least of these, the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the sick, what Jesus claims in Matthew 25 is becoming more real to me. That if we want to know God more, one of the ways, and maybe a principal way that God will appear to us, is in the least expected place. He actually is in the slum under the corrugated iron. He is that homeless person. He is that person who the rest of the world would say, and kind of keep him at a distance.
Yeah.
So we engage there, and I'm starting to see who God is through the least of these more and more clearly. And that's an experience I'm trying to pass on to other people.
Yeah.
So that's why I partner with World Vision in New Zealand and other organisations around the world when I'm there. But I'm not going there at the moment.
So great. But, I mean, such a great pathway, really, where it's led you. And, I mean, like you say, doing God's will, whether that's in music or whether that's in just through your whole life. You know, I love that you're weaving all of that together into one. You know, saying, why don't we talk about this?
We so easily compartmentalize things, don't we? You know, like we try to, these enormous God-sized things like church or like worship. You know, we try to make it into manageable little packets, little compartments of our lives. Ministry, we've talked about, you know, make it these little, but actually God's trying to give us this enormous, just swim into this enormous ministry faith journey, and this is actually where you find you are more yourself, not less yourself, as you do that.
That's amazing. It's revelatory for me even as I'm sitting here. It's great. I've never thought of it that way, but you've really helped to open my eyes, and I'm sure for many, for those who are watching. So for young, I guess musicians in particular, or anyone who's interested in doing their best for God, they can go to morethanmusicmentor.com.
Sure.
And is that the resources on there, like you speaking, or is it more that they would book you to come and do a talk at their church, or how does it work?
Yeah, either both. Through the website and also my YouTube channel, the More Than Music Mentor YouTube channel, there's a whole lot of free videos. I've written a whole lot of articles.
Great.
But they're kind of theoretical in nature, a lot of them, and I love getting in the room with people.
Yeah.
And I do some of this mentorship through Zoom calls and so on. But yeah, go to grantnorsworthy.com or morethanmusicmentor.com to find out about that. A lot of it is trying to bring clarity to musicians who are serving their local church.
Yeah.
To try and help that congregation to sing. But I actually feel like some of it can also be for that career-minded. Mm-hmm. All right, how do I be a person who has faith in Christ yet be a professional musician? It's a tough road, but if it's something that you feel like this is all I can do, and I want to at least have a go at loving God and loving people as I become a professional musician, then if you want to speak to someone who's tried that themselves and fallen over a few times and got scars to show but still got faith and family intact, I'll be happy to speak to you.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us today for the podcast. And thank you for joining us for the podcast as well. And we just pray that God will bless your ministry from here on in.
Thanks, Don.
Awesome. Cool. We'll catch you next time on Gregorian Chat.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the podcast. I've got good news. It just got a whole lot easier to search for us online.
All you got to do is search Gregorian Chat into YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, and Player FM for those who are on Android.
Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. See you later. God bless.